Liana, Daniel, welcome to the live. Appreciate you guys showing up. I'm trying to actually get myself set up here where I'm able to see everybody's chats, and I am not seeing what I should be seeing. So bear with me here 1 second. Yeah, and then we'll introduce you, Brad, and all that good stuff.
If there are people watching, just so you know, Cesar and I go back a few decades, or a couple decades, almost a few. Yeah.
A few, dang. Yeah, we're approaching the few.
Yeah.
Wait, what's few to you? How many years is that?
30. That's 30. But I mean, we've known each other since 2005, so 20 years, 2 decades. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Here in this realm, we've known that for each other for that long, but everywhere else we've known each other for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I was just talking to my daughter about this the other day. We were talking about how we were just, hugging on each other and stuff like that. And I was like, I think we might have known each other in heaven, in the spirit world. You know what I mean? Like we all kind of picked the people we're going to interact with when we come to Earth. You know?
I love it. I love that you guys are even having that conversation.
And my kids are getting a totally different. Obviously, they're getting a totally different education than your average kid at school.
I like it. Dang, folks, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm seeing people's chats on my different screens, but I should be getting them on my server, and I'm not getting it. So it's going to be a little bit challenging here checking out people's stuff. Guys, bear with me here another 2 minutes, and I will not hold you guys back for too long here, but technical difficulties, right? When you go live, there's no, you guys are seeing the behind the scenes, seeing us set up, seeing us fix our hair and stuff, right? Brad, you got a loose piece right there somewhere.
I got it.
You got it.
Yeah, that's my feathers, man. That'll be retreating pretty soon, I'm sure.
Retreating. That's too funny. I'll tell you what, just so there isn't too much dead air and stuff, Brad, why don't you just tell folks who you are when I try to figure out where my window is?
Well, I'm sure you guys have seen me on the show before. If you follow Cesar, you might know a little bit. So I am the host of a show called the Awaken Podcast, which you can find online at theawakenpodcast.com. You can find all my links to Spotify and Apple and all the YouTube and Rumble, even though I don't really upload to YouTube and Rumble. There's a reason for that. I do marketing and web design for a living, and I kind of know the behind the scenes of what's going on with the government, with their hands or their boots on the neck of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all them. So they're pretty much government controlled organizations in a way. Unfortunately, they have to censor a lot. So I feel like my wheels are just kind of spinning if I try to upload any of the content to YouTube. I was on a show called The Confessionals, which was my first ever podcast episode. And it's a pretty big show. And it was about the 33rd parallel, which we'll get into a little bit today. And ever since then, I mean, the show did great for the first couple of days. And then it just bottomed out. Like you couldn't find it anywhere and all that stuff. So it kind of discouraged me a little bit to not upload to YouTube and all that. But I do have my own show. Like I said, I kind of do my own thing on my website. And I'm doing pretty well with audio, like I said, on Spotify and Apple. So if you guys can follow me on there, give the show a hit the like button, and also give the show a 5-star review. I'd really appreciate that. But yeah, I talk about everything from paranormal to conspiracy to hidden history to earth sciences to natural sciences to, pretty much everything that involves like hiding reality or hiding who we are from us. And I think that pretty much is everything in this world. Again, we'll get into some of that today, because I think the devil rules this world. And it's said many times throughout the Bible that the devil actually rules this world. And I think that there is a deception, there's a veil, there's a screen around us, if you will, to prevent us from knowing who we are. We're kind of in this electromagnetic bubble that keeps continuously zapping our brains and helps us or makes us forget who we are. And I think that we are light beings. We're special. We are made in God's image, and we have this immense power to create and to use telepathy and to use our minds, and like Cesar does with mind sight and stuff like that. I think all of those things are true, but I think that is being dampened, if you will. It's being hidden from us, and because I think the power of collective consciousness can change the world, and they don't want anybody who's talking about love and unity and light. Every time they do, they assassinate them. Right. Every time JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., everybody who's talking about, John Lennon, everybody's talking about love and unity, they get assassinated. And I think that that's kind of for me, that's pretty much the obvious reason is love and light vibrates at a higher frequency. Fear, anger, anxiety, depression, things like that, it all vibrates at a low frequency. So I think their job is to keep us in a low frequency so they can attach their fallen angel demonic bodies to our vessels, if you will, and keep us in that state of fear. That's what they pump out in the media. That's what they pump out in movies and TV and everything. This is all propaganda to get you in a state of fear and anxiety so you can't access who you truly are, which are these powerful light beings made in God's image who can create amazing, wonderful, beautiful things. And we've done it in the past with, you see beautiful architecture from the past that we can't create today. Somehow we've lost the technology, but they had it back then with hammers and chisels and buggies and horses. Apparently they could build skyscrapers and move megalithic stones that are, a couple 100 tons, 500 miles. So somehow we've lost that ability now as we're supposed to be more advanced here in 2025. But it definitely seems like we're regressing. We're tearing down all these old beautiful buildings and we're kind of erasing that image of what we used to be. Every time they build a new terrible looking, uninspiring government building in the middle of your city, that's what they're doing. They're uninspired. They want you to be in a state of just sadness and depression. And, they don't want you to see these beautiful buildings that were built with the architecture. I mean, with the landscape that complement the landscape. You used to look at these things. You can go, and when you see these places, like, oh my God, I mean, people pay a lot of money to go overseas and look at these places like the Louvre and Eiffel Tower and all these places that were built in the Milan Cathedral and places like that, the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, all these places that were built, which I think were built using sand and sound. So, yeah, man, they're hiding. Yeah, they're hiding it all from us, dude. They don't want us to know that we can still do that, and that's the whole purpose. So, anything in that realm that the government is trying to, because government means control your mind. Government means to steer, and mint means mind. So government means to steer your mind, and that's what they do. They try to steer our minds away from everything but Christ and love and light and higher vibrations and things like that.
Awesome. Hey, Brad, I appreciate that. And we're going to get further into that today within this hour. Folks, I want to let you guys know that normally I have a screen here where I can see all of you guys chatting in from different social medias. But just to call it out, I am streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and also on TikTok. So if you guys find me anywhere there, you guys can chat from there. I'll see what I can from different screens, and I'll be looking around. So when you see me looking up, I'm trying to find your chat. So let me give a shout out right now for those that are writing right now. We got Juliana. Thank you for being on here. I know you're excited for the topic. So am I. So is Brad. So we're going to get into it here soon. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Ebby Adi and Brian Brightman, one of my neighbors here, my newfound homie in the neighborhood. So this is going to be fantastic. And we have quite a few people coming in from different streams. So that's fantastic. So let's get into it here. Let me do a little bit of cleanup before we start the show. Folks, don't forget, I have a website, beyondthefrequency369.com. There you guys will find things like, one-on-one live sessions with me, private sessions doing Mindsight. So if you guys are interested in that and you guys have seen that demonstration throughout my podcast, by all means, come to my website. Let's talk. And there's no guarantee on this ability. But what's happening here is I'm going to give you techniques and practices that I've used to open up my window as well. We recently just got a community name called the 369 Collective. So you guys can catch us on the Discord and also on the YouTube community. And we can actually talk. There's actually a lot of people right now on the Discord, and we've been having conversations, fantastic conversation on the Discord. I think for the last week now, all kinds of questions, introductions to each other. Why are you here? Your perceptions and concepts about reality and consciousness and ancient, texts and stories. So it's all over the place. It's fantastic. And again, we're there respectively sharing information, and having a good time. So by all means, join us on that. And all of those links are provided to you guys below in the description after the show, to include Brad Lail's podcast, the Awaken podcast. I'll be there available to all of you as well. And if you enjoy my show, this episode, the last episode, and every other one before that, like, subscribe, and share it to people, family, friends. Talk about it at work. And let's open up some minds here just a little bit. And with that being said, let's see if I do this one right. I'm going to hit my intro right. What if I told you that everything you know is just the beginning? Beyond the veil of the ordinary lies a realm of hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, and untapped potential. A place where consciousness expands, reality bends, and the impossible becomes possible. You weren't meant to stay asleep. You were meant to awaken. Open your mind, remember who you truly are, and step with me beyond the frequency 369. All right, cool. That's my intro there. I am starting, this is my third episode, if you guys already know this, doing a live. And again, I want to do this live because I've been getting a lot of fantastic emails, comments, chats from all of you throughout the world regarding your support, your love, conversations, things that you love, things that you want to see regarding the show, questions about me, about my guests. And I feel like I can't get to all of them at a decent amount of time. So by doing these weekly lives every Wednesday at 6:39 p.m. Eastern time, hopefully this is an opportunity to allow me to engage with you and you to engage with me and my guests, if I have any, and just converse and just share some thoughts here. Kate Wee Kale, I think I said this correctly. Hi, good to see you. Thanks for joining us here from YouTube. All right, so now that I did that, let's actually let you guys know what's going on here. So again, this is my live segment beyond 369, the live current. This is a segment outside of my routine podcast, Beyond the Frequency 369, where I normally have guests, and that's all I'm doing, just talking to the guests about their experiences and their perspectives on reality itself. I'm your host, Cesar Pagan, and today, Brad, some of you guys have already heard his intro, but I'm going to introduce him again. He's a good friend of mine. We're going on almost 30 years of knowing each other because we served in the Air Force way too long ago. All right. And Brad Lail is the host of his own podcast called the Awaken podcast. So Brad has done a lot of powerful conversations on topics like fallen angels and portals. So I thought that it would be a perfect time to bring him on here on this live so we can dive into that together, get his perspective and his knowledge on that topic. Now, folks, portals and fallen angels are subjects that come up a lot in ancient texts, esoteric teachings, and modern discussions. So some people see portals as like physical phenomena like plasmas. Others see them as gateways of consciousness. And when it comes to fallen angels, there are just as many views, more purely towards demonic forces to misunderstood beings or even teachers like guides and spiritual beings. The point of today's conversation isn't to convince anyone that there's only one truth. It's about exploring different perspectives, sharing thoughts between friends, and opening the floor to you, the audience, so we can all engage in this mystery together, if you will. So with that being said, Brad, let's talk about portals first, okay? Talk to me, what is, in your definition, through your research, through your conversations, what is a portal?
You are the portal. For real. That's I'm being serious, because in Matthew 6:22 through 23 in the Bible, it says, Jesus says, the eye is the lamp of the body. The eye is the lamp of the body, right? If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And so I think that that's a very important verse in the Bible to start off with, because we are the portals. Now, there are also portals, external portals that exist. There are X points that NASA has admitted to. They actually call them portals themselves. And that's basically where, when the Earth and the sun's magnetic fields line up, they kind of intermingle and they create an X, essentially. And that opens a portal for basically free electrons and positive ions to flow through directly to Earth. Now, those portal locations are hard to map exactly where those X point portals are. But fortunately, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history behind us that we can look at to examine exactly where those portals are and what times they open up, if you will. And I'll just start off, I guess, by naming some of those places, and them already. They're
Go for it.
They're Stonehenge, they're Avebury, they are all these portals. They're the pyramids in Egypt. They're all these are all portal locations, and the ancients built their what they call temples, right? They built them on top of these X point locations. These X point locations are very important because let's just imagine for a minute, the sun, you take a giant hammer, and you hit the back of the sun, it's going to shoot solar winds out and it's going to shoot towards Earth. And how those solar winds get here is through, they kind of ride the currents, this thing called the Birkeland currents. And they actually look like DNA kind of weaving towards Earth. And they hit those portals and they hit the atmosphere, and then they come into, they kind of create this electromagnetic pulse into the ground, and the pulse kind of shoots up electric energy. And that electric energy is called telluric currents. And those currents interact with the magnetic field, and it opens a portal here on Earth, which I call plasma portals. Okay. So I know I'm kind of jumping right into it, saying a lot of things
you're
here.
Good. Yeah,
but
you're good. You're good. I mean, because we want to. So I want to ask this: like, if I'm walking around down the street and a portal were to open, like, are there signs? Are there some kind of like scientific electric magnetic static situation going on in the air? Like, have you read into anything like that?
Yeah, I have. There's a famous video by Jeremy Corbell that he put out a few years ago. Jeremy Corbell he and a guy named George Knapp are these kind of well-known ufologists. They track UFOs. People submit videos to them. They're studying government type things and figuring out where, what the government knows about UFOs and stuff. Somebody from Iraq, a troop deployed to Iraq, sent them a video one time of this thing called the jellyfish UFO. And it can't be seen with your eyes. It can only be seen in infrared. And what it essentially is a big glob of plasma, but you can't see it. It's imperceivable to us because it's not in this visible spectrum that we can see. It's beyond that.
Right. What's
spectrum.
What's plasma? What's just, break it down to us. What exactly is plasma? Where can I find plasma? I honestly don't know too much about what plasma is. I mean, I've heard of plasma. Is it like the ones in our body, right? We have plasma, I guess, in some kind of sense, but you're talking about it, bigger, right? Earth-wise, space-wise. What can you share with us?
Well, the entire universe is plasma, except for humans. Humans are 55% plasma. Okay, literally everything else in the universe is plasma, right? So when you look up at the alleged stars and all that stuff that you see in the sky, when I say alleged, I have this different view on what they're telling us about space. So I see space as everything so we have many universes inside of us. There's 7 octillion atoms that are inside of us, and every one of those atoms are a universe. And you can keep extrapolating that. You can keep going up and up and up and up and up. So we're in somebody's body. We're in a tiny universe in somebody's body, and it's infinitely going on. We're fractals within that. And that fractal all goes all the way to source, right?
Yeah,
it goes all the way to God.
I'm following. So you're saying every atom is a tiny universe?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
That's what I think.
No, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following as well and everything. And then when we define universe, like, what do you define as universe? What's encompassed in a universe? Is every universe, every little atom, just like our universe that NASA has told us? We got planets, we got nebulas, we got star systems. Do you see the same thing replicated in the micro as it is in the macro?
Yeah, like all the heavenly bodies, they're all just like, if you think about the way the sun, I think, rotates around us. We're in a heliocentric model, in my opinion. But so essentially, you see how the planets and everything rotate around the sun or revolve around the sun. That's the same way an atom does, right? If you look at the model of an atom that they give us, it looks like a 2D model. I mean, it's a 2D model. It's got the nucleus in the middle, and you got the electron kind of flying around. That's the thing we've seen in science class. That's actually not how it looks. An electron cloud, I'm sorry, I'm kind of skipping around, but what an atom actually looks like is it's chaotic. It's like a tornado. That electron is just not going in a steady motion. What it's doing is kind of going chaotically like a tornado. It's kind of being tossed around. And that
Oh, okay.
is called the way that electron operates is it's called non-linearity. It doesn't have a specific, you know, place to be. It can be anywhere at any given time. And if you look at like the universe, I actually think that Earth itself is a holographic. Well, it's more like a toroidal Earth, where you have what's called the axis of symmetry, which is this line in the middle, which is what we would be living on right now, like flat Earth or whatever people want to call it.
Okay. All right. Like a
Right?
flat Earth concept.
It's
Okay.
like a flat Earth concept, but it
Yep.
has magnetic fields. Everything has a
Gotcha.
magnetic field. We have magnetic fields. Everything in the universe has a magnetic field. The Earth, the sun. I just told you when the sun lines up with the Earth, so that the sun's magnetic fields lining up with the Earth's magnetic fields, and it creates these X points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every one of these atoms within our body has a magnetic field, and they're all bound together magnetically. They're connected. So when we have dis-ease means that the atoms in our body have misaligned or disjoined, right? So going back to what I was saying about plasma, I kind of skipped around a little bit and didn't explain what plasma is. Plasma is the fourth state of matter, and it's basically a soup of ionized gas. So when we haven't been taught plasma in school.
No.
We might have heard something, but it's the fourth state of matter. That means that you got solid, liquid, and gas, and also plasma, but they don't teach that in everyday school. You go to MIT to kind of learn something like that. I know some people have been taught some of that. You're probably going to get it in some states still, but most of the education systems don't teach that.
Yeah, it's not common. It's not common knowledge. So, like, if I'm looking at, let's say, because you mentioned solid, gas, and liquid, and then there's plasma. If we use the example of an ice cube, we have the solid, we have the liquid form, we have the gas form, and the fourth form, you're considering that ice cube can also turn into plasma. And plasma is like what? Like light?
Well, I'll explain that. So
Okay.
plasma is you heat the ice cube. It's a solid. You heat it, it becomes a liquid. You heat that liquid, it evaporates, it becomes a gas. Well, when that gas is evaporated, you heat that gas and it becomes plasma. It kind of
Gotcha.
strips everything back to its original state, which is a soup of ionized. It's a soup of ions in like an ionized gas form with free electrons and positively charged ions. So it's all a bunch of stuff just kind of out there. So I think that we're sort of suspended in this reality in a plasma state. There's plasma all around us. That's how we animate our bodies, right? We can't
Yeah.
see it. We can't perceive it, but it's all around us. So when something dies and when something gets heated and everything, it kind of goes back into this plasma. And I actually think that the firmament around us is this plasma ball, this impenetrable plasma ball, if you will. And I say ball because that's the only way I can describe a firmament. So you have the toroidal Earth, which creates the magnetic field, right? So it's spewing out from the middle. Just think about how a magnet, you know how you've seen magnets online where it has those kind of toroidal shapes around it?
Yeah, I like using when it comes to turtle shape for folks that don't understand what that looks like. And you guys can just Google it right now if you guys want to. But I like the example of an apple. If you cut an apple in half and you see the seed in the middle, okay, imagine us being in that seed, and then the shape of that apple going around. That's the toroidal field. Okay, so that helps you guys visualize that. But Brad, before you continue, let me go back just a little bit. You mentioned about plasma is what animates us, right?
I think we're suspended.
Right. Yeah, we're just talking here. So, like, is your definition of like a soul plasma? Is a soul a spirit? Is that considered plasma? Is that how you view what a soul is?
No, I would think we're just inorganic, or we're organic material in this reality. So we're like
Okay.
50. Again, we're 55% plasma, and it's kind of it's like there's specks of dust called space dust, and plasma attaches itself to this. So this kind of goes to the theory of UFOs, right? When you see tic tac shapes and pyramids and cubes and all this stuff. So what you're looking at a lot of times is platonic solids, and those platonic solids is what Plato defined, and it essentially is these specks of dust are always flying around, and you can probably see some of that, like when the sunlight hits, comes through, you can kind of see dust flying around. Well, in order for plasma to enter our reality, they have to attach it themselves to a speck of dust, and then they form into what's called a complex plasma. And this complex plasma kind of floats around, and it's floating around in globs, like I told you with the jellyfish UFO, and it is looking for a magnetic field. That magnetic field comes from the telluric currents that are coming out of the earth, and the telluric currents come from the sun and the planet and the earth interaction through the X points, right? So when those, just again, picture it like an electromagnetic pulse, these things kind of puff out, and they come out through faults and fissures and volcanoes and extinct volcanoes and things like that. And here's how that works. So volcanic rock is magma, right? And it's filled with iron, essentially. When the sun, which is a big magnetic thing, and the earth line up, that's two magnets. So what's happening is the earth, every day at dusk and dawn, the earth comes across the horizon. As soon as it hits the horizon, as soon as you can see it going down or coming up, that's when those portals start becoming activated. Because what happens is, just like induction with normal magnets, if you have a magnet that's stationary, it's not going to create electricity. But when you bring another magnet in, it induces it and it creates a magnetic field. And that's what's happening with these portals. These portals are opening up at dusk and dawn, and these things, so spirits from the outside world are coming in through the plasma. Okay, and then they're flying around as these globs of complex plasma, which are intelligent beings. They are supercomputers. Okay, this is where you get the term non-human intelligence from the government. They don't call them aliens like we do. They call them non-human intelligence.
So let me stop you right there. So okay, so these globs of electromagnetic force of energy that come out of these cracks in the earth, anybody that walks by and sees this would think like, oh shoot, like the rapture is happening, spirits are coming out of the ground, things like that. Now you mentioned that they are intelligence, and even the government is saying that they're intelligent. So what have you heard or seen regarding why is it that the government or anybody else even consider these entities intelligence? Where's the proof in that?
Well, that's where you get the idea of complex plasmas. If you study complex plasmas, you'll know what I'm talking about. They have these things called the Kordylewski clouds, which are these giant plasma fields above Earth that they've been studying for a long time. And essentially, this is where they got the idea for supercomputers from. And that's the nonlinearity, because they're basically, anything that's nonlinear means it's intelligent. So a regular computer like we're looking at, it works off of if this, then that logic. Basically, it kind of goes up. You could program it and it's going to steadily do this. Well, with that's linear. Well, with nonlinearity, it's like that free electron that I was just telling you about in the electron cloud. It's kind of chaotic. It's kind of everywhere, and it's unpredictable. And that's what a supercomputer is, and that's what these complex plasmas are. So these complex plasmas, I need to explain what that telluric energy is first.
Okay.
Where we get the idea of serpents from. You've heard serpents all throughout, in every tradition and everything.
All texts, cultures, things
right.
like that.
Where the idea of serpents come from is energy. It's a masculine and a feminine energy that comes through these locations. It is the current, the telluric current that's coming from these portals. So we used to be able to see that. We used to be able to see the currents with our eyes, and we could experience that because we weren't so bombarded with frequency and technology and all this other stuff that has dampened our ability to experience those currents. So what they used to see was all these energies kind of snaking around. And this is where you get the idea for the caduceus, which is the medical symbol with the snakes wrapping around the pole and all this stuff. This is where you get the idea of Moses' staff with the serpent wrapped around it. This is where you get the idea of Arthur and Merlin, the magicians or the wizards who would go to these portal locations in the British Isles, and they would heal people because people would go there and they were interacting with non-human intelligence. They are interacting with intelligence that has been around forever, and they exist beyond our perception, but they're watching us. And this is a very important thing. This is where you get the term watchers from, out of the book of Enoch. This is what the fallen angels are.
Right.
So people started saying serpents because it was an energy. Okay, it's a circuit of energy, and I kind of lost my train of thought. But basically, what happens?
You're fine. But just before you continue, I want to make sure that folks, if you're listening to this, if you heard about plasma, the toroidal field, the currents, everything that Brad's been talking about, and you know a little bit something about it, by all means, put it in the chat here. Let's talk. Let's get what your perspective is. What have you heard? Do you agree with what Brad is saying? Do you understand it in a different way? Yeah, share your thoughts, engage. And hi, Stace. Welcome. Thank you for coming on to the live. Appreciate you. And so, Brad, I want to ask you regarding, and well, actually, let me do this. Finish off that sentence because I want to ask you about fallen angels.
Okay. Well, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so like getting into that conversation. So what happens is that energy is always there. And when the sun is out, they're dispersed. Because remember, if you heat a gas, it becomes plasma. So it disperses it back to its natural state. Okay. So as the sun's going down, these things quickly, the energy that's beyond us, the non-human intelligence, quickly attaches itself to space dust and forms complex plasmas. And it's a big intelligent ball that's floating around, and you can't see it. It's invisible, right? It hits a magnetic field, a vortex, a magnetic field, and then it morphs into a ball of light or an orb, which is what all these you see with UFOs and stuff, right? Some call it ball lightning, but it's actually an orb. It's a spiritual, non-human intelligent being. Okay,
and
it's
is it harmful? Like, does it like travel?
So it's different
and then
energies.
Shoots? Does it shoot? And does it shoot like lightning bolts at people?
Well,
and
yeah,
stuff?
It's kind of it's electromagnetic, so it's kind of sparking, right? So it starts off as this ball. Well, let me kind of go back a little bit because I'm kind of skipping around too. When that complex plasma hits a magnetic field, and there's a guy named Winston Bostick who came across this in the 50s. He studied this stuff. He accidentally shot some plasma into a magnetic field, and he was testing something with plasma or something, not magnetic fields. And the plasma started when he shot one plasma into a magnetic field. It created a ring, a toroid, a single ring, a glowing ring like off of Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Those little golden rings. It created that, which looks like a halo, which is interesting because this might be where the idea of angels came from, wearing halos and all this stuff. So, and what he noticed that it would also come in at an angle, at a 90-degree right angle. So again, this is angles, angels, halos, and toroids, right? So a plasma toroid is called a plasmoid. All right. And when you shoot he discovered that when you shoot multiple plasmas at each other, it creates a plasmoid that turns into like ball lightning or an orb. Okay. And this thing comes into our reality and it's floating around. Well, just like I told you, there's a soup of ions that's all around us all the time, which means that there's matter. There is decayed matter around us. There is the putrefied remains of animals and stuff like that. Things that have died, that energy kind of gets dispersed and those ions kind of get dispersed into the atmosphere. And it's all around us. It's kind of stuck in that plasma world. And that's why you see Bigfoot. That's why you see like Yeti, for example. That's why the Yeti is like a snowman, right? Or a abominable snowman, right? He's white. He's got white fur and all that stuff because they're coming in through portals in snowy regions. And so they're attaching themselves to the putrefied remains of dead animals from that region. So you're going to get white hair and stuff like that.
Okay,
right?
just as I'm following. So you're saying things like a Yeti or a Bigfoot could be how you say, manifested versions of these plasma?
Yes, I think so. Yeah,
I
it's
see.
non-human intelligent. All of it is non-human intelligence. And the reason
Okay.
I told you about that with the magnetite, it's locked. It's kind of solidified. It can't come out until the sun comes back around and then moves it, and then it releases that telluric current, that energy that's been trapped inside there, right? And then they come through the portals. So these things, they know us, they watch us. That's why they called watchers. And this goes back to the book of Enoch, where Shemiyaza, he was the leader of the rebellion against God. He was a leader of the 200 fallen angels against God. And then Azazel was like, so essentially what we're looking at, Shemiyaza was like the devil, right? And then Azazel would be like Baphomet or Rimfan or Moloch or one of these. He's another fallen angel.
I'm familiar with him. Azazel, he, according to ancient texts, to the Sumerian, the Anunnaki, they mentioned that he was the one that gave humans armor, gave women
Knowledge,
cosmetics, gave
cosmetics. Yeah.
knowledge. Azazel was told to women, he goes, hey, put this on your face, make it look better, pleasing to the eye and things like that. And again, teaching humans about, putting on armor and weaponry and, how to cut people, how to kill people. Yeah, that definitely changed the
Yeah.
game.
So Azazel is like Moloch, and people would make sacrifices to him, and then they continued doing it with Moloch, and they continue doing it to this day. And we got government officials that continue to do that stuff. And there's been emails and stuff released in WikiLeaks that have proven that they still talk about this stuff and they still do it. So they typically would sacrifice children and stuff like that to Molochs. But all of these names are the same. I mean, they're all the same entities, but they're different names.
Absolutely.
And
Different cultures,
yeah,
different names, same personality,
same
same
evil,
objective. Yeah.
same evil, all that stuff. So, God punished them. He sent them, they fell to earth, and they were basically locked in Mount Hermon at the gates of hell. And Jesus said he built his church on top of that to prevent them from coming out. And
Hey,
so,
let me because you just triggered a thought here regarding fallen angels, and then you mentioned God as well. Let me just ask you this question because I just thought about it just now. So Jesus, the man that walked on the planet, would he be considered like an ET? Like, is he a fallen angel? Is he how do I put this? It just came to my head. I'm trying to put it into words and everything. Do you see him as a human like everybody else, just with special abilities, or would he fall in the category of a fallen angel? Let me ask that, in your
no,
opinion.
he's definitely not a fallen angel. No,
Okay.
no. He came separate through Mary, the birth of from the birth of a virgin, right? And it's like he has a totally different. His whole mission was to come enlighten everyone and to wake everybody up to the demonic influence that's over this world. And he was trying to tell people that this world is temporary. It's all material. It's all matter, right? And true divinity is in the spirit, is in the ethereal, is in the eternal. It's not anything here on earth. And that was what he was trying to um that was the main message he was trying to tell everyone.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, you can access this divinity by looking within, and I just mentioned with Matthew 6:22, if your eyes are healthy, he's talking about letting that light flood into your third eye is what it sounds like to me. And light, he's talking about vibrations. He's talking about getting away from this low vibration energy and finding your way to the divine. Because when you're in that divine light, when you're accessing love and light and authenticity and all this other stuff, you're not going to be even close to negative forces and negative energies. And so he was giving us the keys to how to unlock the door to free ourselves from this matrix, from this cube, from this Saturnian cube. As my good friend Topher Gardner mentioned on my show one time, how, carbon is the sixth element, right? And a cube is 666. And he was telling us how to open the box, get out of the box, expand that matrix. And it's funny because when you open a cube, if you open a box, it unfolds into a cross. And so there's a lot of like symbology there that transcends all kinds of different cultures and basically everything. And carbon is what we're made of, right? Is one of the main elements that we're made of. So he was telling us that carbon is the trap, and you can expand that and go beyond that into the eternal, into the ethereal. Don't worry about, he says, don't store up your treasures here on earth. All this crap that we got in our offices that he's telling us, don't do that. Give it away.
Right.
It's nonsense. It's immaterial because it doesn't mean anything. What your true purpose here is to learn how to love and be kind to others. It's like a school.
Yeah. So, Brad, you mentioned the carbon is what's considered the trap from what you were saying. So, if a lot of folks on my show, and I talk about this too and everything about us being spiritual beings before we were having this human experience. So, there's people out there that, to include myself, that have an understanding that we chose to come here. We chose to have this human experience. So if we chose to come here, and let's say following what you were talking about regarding carbon being the trap, did we choose to trap ourselves intentionally in this realm, according to what you're talking about?
I just had this. So Satan, the Hebrew word for Satan is Hasatan, and Hasatan is a job title. It's not necessarily a person. Hasatan was sent to the Garden of Eden to tempt Adam and Eve, right? So what all this is, and I had a girl on my show named Tanya Harris who just talked about this. Because I asked her a similar question: are we God experiencing Himself? And she said, "Well, if you're always light, how can you know anything else without darkness?" And that's exactly right. I think that if you're always light, you kind of create this world where you're like, let's break into fractals and have every kind of experience that we can have, you know. And so you're experiencing. We're all the same. We're just experiencing it from your eyes in Tampa, my eyes in South Carolina, that kind of stuff. And we're all having, some people are experiencing it as a homeless person. Some people experience it as Black. Some people experience it as white, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I think that we're all fractals of God because you need to, the darkness defines the light. You need the darkness to understand what light is. Because if you know yourself as nothing but pure love and light and energy, then you have to create some kind of a world where, your job here is just to go explore, experience, but also know that this is not where you reside. Your residence is in the heavenly body. Which you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it the quantum field. You can, whatever science word you want to call it. I'll call it heaven because that's the spiritual lens that I look through. But
no, that makes sense, man. We definitely agree with that and everything. We are spiritual beings. As spiritual beings, we're powerful. We're omnipotent. So we're, like you said, we're light. So in order to understand the totality of what we actually are, we got to understand what we're not, right? So we come here, we choose to have this experience, to be mortal, to have feelings, to die, to
eat
cry,
steak, sex,
right, everything, right? So then once we have this experience and we return back to source, if you will, then we have a better, okay, now I understand what I truly am, So we agree with that. I love your perspective of how you got there. I had to throw mine in there just for folks that understand that as well. But by all means, man.
Well, whatever, regardless of what you think of the Bible, regardless of whenever you think it was written or whatever the case is, it's all saying exactly how you feel. You're looking at it from a different perspective, and if you can match that up with Scripture, for sure. I mean, it is, when God made man, He created us in His image, and He spoke us into existence. And sound is what creates light, and so we are light beings having a human experience, and we have the ability to create and all that stuff. And once we start doing that, how when you get creative, it feels good. You're like, anytime you do anything that's creative, if it's building something, if it's cutting grass, if it's washing your truck, if it's doing something that's not being stagnant and stationary, you feel good about it because that's your true essence. That's who you truly are. You are a builder. You are a creator. We can create amazing, magnificent things. But the devil has been put here he rules the earth. I mean, there's tons of scripture that says this. And his job is to muddy the waters on things. But what happened was fallen angels were sent to watch over humans and to guide us and make sure that we're going in the right direction. And they did the opposite of that. And they taught, just like with Azazel and Shemiyaza, they taught humans they just basically taught debauchery. And then they mated with the daughters of humans and created the Nephilim. They created the giants, the pale-skinned, red-haired giants that
Bastard childs.
you literally see all over the world. Every culture talks about pale skin. By the way, Thor was pale skinned and red-haired. We think of him as this Norse god with this beautiful, long, flowing blonde hair because that's what TV's told us. But he's actually this big, ugly, red-haired giant, pale-skinned giant. And that was in, the Norwegian area, right? But every time they dig up giants' bones in Peru or Texas at Rockwall or Catalina Islands, anywhere they find bones, giants' bones, they're all pale skin, red hair, right? There's a tribe, there's a tribe called the Maori people, which is in Peru or in the New Zealand, Peruvian, Catalina Islands region of the world. These Maori people have a tradition of these spirits called the Patupaerehi. And the Patupaerehi are these pale-skinned, red-haired spirits that mated with the Maori people and created the Irakuhu. Now, URU is an interesting prefix because you start seeing that in Sumeria as well, right? With like Uruk was the Sumerian city, right? That Gilgamesh was the king of, right?
That he ruled, yeah.
And Gilgamesh was an offshoot of Enki and Enlil, who were, in my opinion, fallen angels. So again, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of dissimilarity or unsimilarity, whatever you want to say. They're not really similar in a lot of ways, but they are similar in some ways with Shimiyaza, Azazel, Enki, and Enlil.
Yeah.
So, like, again, Shimiyaza was the leader of the 200 200 Watchers or the fallen angels. And by the way, 200, there just so happens to be 200 craters on Earth. This is pretty interesting. And they descended down to Mount Hermon, and they mated with human women. They created the Nephilim. This is all from Genesis 6, and in the Enochian tradition in the books of Enoch. He was a symbol of rebellion, right? He was a symbol of lust and corruption of humanity. Azazel, like you said, he taught warfare and cosmetics and sorcery and all this stuff. And they both represented the fall of like these divine beings through rebellion. And Enki and Enlil were similar in some ways. Like, so Enki or Enlil, as you know, is the god of sky and storms. He's associated with authority and law and order and all this. He's sometimes just destructive. He's allegedly the one who sent the great flood, which I think that was twisted around. God sent the flood to wipe out the fallen angels, because when they created Nephilim, when they created giants, these giants were eating humans and they were making hybrids. And this is where you get the idea of mermaids and minotaurs and centaurs and all this other stuff, these half human, half animal hybrids. They were the ones creating these creatures. And there's maps and all kind of stuff that prove that this was true.
Now just to kind of hit a couple of points here. So regarding, let me go back a little bit. The 200 craters, right? Those are just spread throughout the world, or are they in a particular area in the planet?
Well, they're spread throughout the world now, but before the fall, there was like a Pangea-like continent where it was all just one big landmass.
Okay,
and so before that, they were all hitting in the same locations.
I got you. So you're saying these fallen angels these 200 fallen angels fell to Earth. There's your proof with the craters and everything like that. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just sort of a fun, I don't know that that's true or not, but it's just sort of a fun number that just so happens to be 200 fallen angels and 200 craters. Yeah. And so what I was saying was that, so these beings, these fallen angels were creating these demigods essentially. So the fallen angels are known as gods. They are Elohim. They're the Benai Elohim. They're the fallen angels, right? But they were sons of God. They were served God for whatever his purpose was. And God didn't like what was happening. He didn't like that they taught forbidden knowledge. And they taught forbidden knowledge at these portal locations. They taught forbidden knowledge at places like Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe and all these places. So when somebody wanted to know information, because they weren't always in human form, they shed their Okatarian to sleep with the human women, but they weren't always in human form. They would come back through these portal locations as pure energy and then morph into orbs and stuff like that. People back then, old pagans, druids, and things like that, they would build their graveyards on ley lines, and the ley lines and the portals and everything that I'm talking about, that's all where the energy flows. So essentially, the X points have there's these portal locations where the X points come in, but the ley lines typically connect from the portal locations to like the volcanoes. So when the energy flows out of the volcanoes, it snakes around and makes its way to these portal locations, these X points. So what I was trying to say is that the fallen angels shed their Okatarian, which means they shed their glowing armor, if you will, and they made it with humans, but then they went back. So people would continue to go back to these locations to get forbidden knowledge. And this is where you get the idea, in my opinion, of eating the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So they're going back over and over, and they're accessing forbidden knowledge that they're not supposed to have. And God didn't like it, and he flooded the earth. But and it says in the Bible, he flooded the earth to wipe out the Nephilim, but some of them remained. Okay, so since the flood, what you have is what Gary Wayne calls ites, right? Canaanites, which are basically God lights. They still have some kind of God DNA, but they're like a distilled or a diluted version of a God. They're like
I see what you're
demigods.
saying. Yeah.
Right?
Let me
So-
ask you this, Brian. Okay, if let's just follow this narrative. If God is this, he's unconditional love, right? He's no judgment, right? So he's this loving being, and he created us, humanity. And then these fallen angels came and messed with us pretty heavily. So my question is, wouldn't have God also created those fallen angels as well? You know, why would he? And when I say he, we're just talking about, we're trying to, for the narrative, trying to put down a chain of command, so to speak. If he's full of love and everything, why would he be upset? Why would he put a flood and kill and wipe the earth clean and things like that? You know, to me, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, but again, if he's just trying to, I mean, he wasn't trying to experience he didn't want his offspring, us, the fractals of him, he didn't expect us to be doing the debauchery that we do. You and I know, as men, we do some pretty, we watch some crazy porn sometime, or we do some crazy things. That's not a godly thought. Like, you've heard people talk about like ejaculation, for example. It takes all your power away from you. Like, when there's things like porn out there, that sucks the energy back out of us, and then we have to build that fluid back up, throughout the vertebrae, and then sort of enlighten our light. So I think God's purpose for us was to still have that full potential of light, but then these fallen angels were jealous because they were watching us, and they were seeing us to have sex and do all these human things and eat. And man, what would it be like to eat steak and apples and all this other stuff? I mean, I don't actually don't think we ate steak. I think we were all vegetarians back then. I think that's a biblical thing
Probably
too.
Probably so.
Yeah.
But that's where I was getting at, though. Again, we're these like chosen species, these, humanity by God and everything. Then all of a sudden, he also created these Elohim, these fallen angels and everything stuff. In a sense, he didn't make them in his image. Like, they're not a fractal of his love.
Yeah, but he gave us free will, which is the whole
free
point.
will.
Yeah, the free
Okay.
will part is the biggest part, because everybody has the option to choose. Now the angels didn't, because their job was to watch over us, which is funny, man, because going back to what I was saying about how the pyramids and all these places were these portal locations where the fallen angels would come and they would interact with humans. This is where they gave them information. Now, if you look at the back of the dollar bill, in Latin, it says something along the lines, the birth of a new age, which is talking about a new world order. It says something like new world order on it. And the pyramid itself, what is above it? It's an eye. And what is the eye doing? He's watching us. That's what watchers are. That's what we're talking about. And Enoch called the word for watcher in the book of Enoch is egregoroi, which means egregore. And egregore is a thought form, a belief. So we can create negative entities as well. So yeah, we can, because Christmas and all this other stuff, that's a positive energy that we've created. But it can also become a negative thing if we give it too much negative energy. So we have the ability to create energies, which is a very interesting aspect to us. Dude, and all these books, all these movies, everything throughout history points to the exact same thing I'm talking about. Even in The Lord of the Rings, there was a Satan-like figure or a Shemiyaza type figure. And then there was a Azazel type figure, which was like Sauron, right? And he watched over Middle Earth. And how did he watch over Middle Earth? With the Palantiri, with the seeing stones, right? So all of this stuff throughout history, people have intuitively and instinctively known this. And this is why you have so many different interpretations of these fallen angels. It's negative, it's light versus dark. That's what it's always been. The only source of real light comes from God. It doesn't come from any of these fallen entities or princes or whatever. So when you get people like King Gilgamesh, right? He was more or less like the Prince of Persia, almost like over a province, right? So then you had these sort of demigods who had that fallen angel bloodline, the serpent seed bloodline, and they were ruling over these different regions. This is where you get the Phoenician, the king of Tyre, and the Phoenicia area, and all this stuff. And basically, God sent, I can't remember who said, Jacob and Joshua or somebody like that, to fight off all these things and get them out of the land. And he started destroying with the Sodom and Gomorrah and all this stuff. And these things dispersed. And this is why you have them all over the place. This is why you have them, that, like I mentioned with the Patupayarehi, that became the Urukuhu. And they have it in the Allegheny National Forest in the United States. Well, the name Allegheny comes from the word Allegheny, which are giants, which are red-haired, pale-skinned giants that fled from that region of Phoenicia. And by the way, you have Phoenix, Arizona. Where does the word Phoenix come from? Where does the Phoenician alphabet come from? So everything that we know about comes from these fallen angels. But true source, light, we don't need to access, we don't need to go through churches. We don't need to pray to statues. We don't need to have a man in a cloak and a robe and blowing smoke around and all this other stuff. We can access God directly by looking in at the light within us. That is the divinity that we all have. And he gave us free will. And that free will comes with a punishment. I don't think that when these things are punished, I don't think that they're punished for eternity. And we know that because even Satan is released from the depths, from the abyss. And by the way, I believe it's Enlil is the king of the abyss, right? He's the king of the waters. And that's where Satan was bound to, was the depths of the abyss.
Some people, when, for those that follow the Anunnaki mythology regarding Enki and Enlil, Enki was the good one, the one that loved humanity, whereas for Enlil, didn't love him as much. And this is where folks that follow this mythology, when they compare the stories of Jesus and God doing good things and then doing, pretty bad things, right? They would then compare to just saying that, well, it's not actually one God, it's actually what Enlil did and what Enki did. And then they, created the one God concept. And this is why sometimes a lot of folks, when you read the Bible, you have this interpretation that, like, dang, is God having a temper tantrum? Like he loves everybody and then he hates everybody and then he destroys everybody, then he loves everybody again, then, makes you do things,
I actually think that I think that there's a dark master, there's a Satan, like the devil. They call him the dragon in the Bible. He's known as the dragon, the evil one. There's many names, whatever, right? But it's all evil. But he's essentially the dragon in the Bible. He's the one that's chained into the abyss. But Azazel and Enki, they both gave humans advanced and forbidden knowledge, right? The only difference is Enki is kind of seen as this like benevolent thing, and Azazel is seen as corrupting. But again, you're talking about a polytheistic view on gods. Like the Greek had the pantheon of the gods. Well, if you think about the pantheon, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about fallen angels who were watching over these different provinces. And so they were God-like. They were lowercase g, right? They were Elohim, but with the lowercase g. And they convinced, imagine seeing a fallen angel do all these magical things. You, as a Greek person, you're like, shit, dude, that's pretty awesome. He must be God. Yeah. He's doing some crazy things, right? He's teaching us cosmetics and all this other stuff. So you get this idea that it was this polytheistic. There's only one God. There's only one source light. That's it. It's God. It's monotheistic. It's one God. That's it. These fallen angels convinced everybody that they were the gods, and they just kind of spread out, and they had all these different regions. And again, this is why, this is why God, right? There was a principality. There was a prince of this region that we live in now. Dude, there's pyramids all over the United States. It's pretty evident that this was some form of different civilization a long time ago that they're not telling us. I drove through Wyoming, and I swear, man, they're not mountains.
Yeah.
I can discern what's a mountain and what's not a mountain.
Well, if there's so many,
pretty obvious that there were pyramids everywhere in Wyoming.
If there's so many pyramids all around the world, when there's so much of one thing, that means that one thing does something. There's a purpose for that one thing. And I don't know if we're on the same page on this one, Brad, but my understanding is there's so many pyramids all around the world in specific locations because there's some type of energy generator, if you will. If talking about the ley lines and there being power flowing through the earth and everything, if you put all of these pyramids in these particular locations, you have free energy throughout the world without wires and fiber networks and things like that. So yeah, are we on the same page as that?
Well,
I don't see pyramids are.
I don't see them as power generators. What they were, in my opinion, they acted like batteries, and they helped open up the gateways for the gods to come in, the lowercase g gods to come in and do whatever they wanted to do here on Earth. And I think that they tricked humans into doing that. They tricked humans into building these things and saying, we are gods. You need to build these things. And again, in the Bible, it says the devil will present himself as an angel of light. And that's what they do. They've been watching us their whole life. They know everything about you, Cesar. They know your grandma, your mom. They know what your grandma used to cook you when you were a kid. And so they're going to come to you one night, and they're going to telepathically talk to you and go, Cesar, I know I'm your grandma. I used to cook you your favorite blueberry muffins or whatever the case is,
It must be my grandma.
It must be my grandma.
Yeah,
and then
she knows that. Yeah.
And then that orb of light that's telepathically communicating with you will convince you to build stone structures, these stone circles, these dolmens, these passage mounds, all these different shapes, man, all these different gateways. What does it look like? What does a dolmen look like? It looks like the pi symbol, like the radius symbol, right? What does the Torai look like in China? The gates, the big red gates.
No, I haven't seen those. What those look like?
They're dolmens. So the dolmens are like these two pillars with a big pillar on top. The radius symbol in math.
Yeah.
So that's what in the Chinese have the same thing, but they call them torais or tories or something like that.
Interesting.
And so what they are is these doorways. They're the gateways that they thought that these entities were walking through. Yeah. And so that's why they built these locations. But I think that there's a component of governments that are working to prevent things from coming through, which is why Stonehenge was destroyed at one point, which is why Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried up and intentionally covered up and buried, by the way, which is why we have national forests, which prevent us from finding other pyramids and stuff in the United States, which is why we have nationally protected parks and state parks as well. So all these things, what they do with these portal locations in the United States, for example, there's a lot of them. There's some right here in South Carolina, not far from me.
Brad, before you get into those and everything, I want to make sure we're going to have probably another 3 minutes here, and then we're going to have to wrap up the live. So finish that thought, and then we'll close it out here.
Yeah, man. What I was saying was these locations. So what happens in the United States, and all you got to do is Google this. I don't even have to, you can just find a local pyramid or mound is what they call them, burial mounds or Indian mounds or whatever here in the United States. If you live near one, someone brought up one in Ohio to me, and I was like, I guarantee you that a university is in charge of it. And they looked it up, and I was right. University of Ohio was in charge of it. So what happens is, the government gives these universities grant money, and they basically say, here, we're going to give you grant money to not dig and to not explore and to not say things. And so what happens is it does two things. It looks like, the education systems are in charge of it. So they must have done digging. They must know what's going on. Nobody, they don't. They don't know anything, and they won't dig. They won't let you dig, and they won't let you use drones over these places and all kind of stuff. There's a
That makes
lot of
sense. So you can
federal restrictions on
own,
it.
yeah, you can own a location and then tell anybody anything that, yeah, we done this and yeah, we done that, but you could produce false documentation saying, oh yeah, we done this, and pay other folks within the staff saying, yeah, I support that and blah blah. So that makes absolute sense. Brad, wow, you have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things, and this is why, folks, if you really enjoyed it, and I know you guys did, I know I did, this conversation here and these gems that were dropped today, definitely check out the Awaken podcast on YouTube and where else, Brad?
No, it's not really on YouTube. It's not. It's on YouTube and Rumble, but yeah, I would just go to audio versions of Spotify and Apple. But so Spotify is my best platform. Apple, I feel like I'm a little bit shadow banned as well. But yeah, mostly Spotify and Apple. But yeah, I need to grow the numbers bigger on Apple. So please, if you have an Apple, if you have a smartphone, an Apple phone, I would encourage you to please follow me on Apple and give the show a 5-star review as well. Like I said, those reviews help a lot because they help us skirt the algorithm, and it helps get our content in front of thousands of more listeners just by giving reviews and comments and things like that. So that's kind of the currency we live in the podcast world, at least in my mind, is likes, comments, shares, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. Yeah, and I tell you, I've seen a lot of Brad's episodes. He has some great guests. They have some really cool conversations. I love their perspectives. It's always fresh to hear how people interpret and understand things. We're all heading the same direction, maybe on different lanes, but we're all heading the same direction, same mindset. And Brad's got a lot of heart in his conversations, so I definitely appreciate him. I love this dude. So again, thank you for joining me today on this live and talking to my audience and letting them know a little bit more about you and your knowledge. Okay.
Of course, man. Thank you to your listeners too. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on your show, man. I appreciate it. I'm proud of you too for all the great things you're doing online
I
with your
appreciate you,
show
buddy.
and with YouTube and everything.
Appreciate that. Folks, I'll give you a little bit of inside background since we're doing a live here. I actually started my show because of this guy here. All right. So I do give you credit for that. We had a conversation, sparked a little interest, a little fire in me, and I decided to just flip the switch and start a podcast. And here I am today, going beyond the frequency 369. Han Vilaya, I hope I didn't destroy that. Thank you very much. She said, I know I can't put it up here, folks. For some reason, my chat isn't working, so I usually will put it up on the screen, but she's saying thank you to the both of us, and we thank you as well. Jesus loves you. You've been commenting a lot here. I wish I could have put him all on the screen. He has a lot to say about Jesus and the serpent and Christianity. I hope everybody that's been watching right now this live, you guys can go there and check out his comments and his chats. But I like everything you were saying there. So again, thanks for joining us. Stacy, Juliana, Katie, Will K, Ebi ID, Daniel Cochran. Again, all of you guys, thanks a lot for engaging here, and everybody else who just watched that wasn't able to engage. We love you guys for joining us. Remember, I have a website, which is right here, beyondthefrequency369.com. There you will find a lot of cool things, but one of those is my book, Cesar's Chronicle, The Anunnaki and Us, and I got it right here. All right, guys. 33 pages, not a hard read, okay? But this is actually young Cesar, young Anunnaki, telling his perspective about him and his family, the Anunnaki, who came to Earth and created man. And there's a lot of fun little Easter eggs, hidden knowledge, things that will kind of provoke thought in you. So if you guys want to open your mind, if you're not too scared to read something fantastical, keep in mind, it's not about convincing you that any of it is true. It's just to give you the opportunity to introduce you to something that is not in mainstream today. So with that being said, continue to like, subscribe, and share both of our channels, the Awaken Podcast and Beyond the Frequency 369. And next week, I will be on again, same time, same place, maybe doing a solo, maybe having a guest. Who knows? We'll stay open to that possibility. Look out for this week. I will be putting out my next episode with my guest, Lail. She is a mind-side practitioner and telepath, and Folks, she's been all around the world doing amazing things. Her daughter currently right now is 15 years old, and she's a nonverbal autistic, but she is currently working with Stanford to do research to prove that telepathy is real, and she's been blowing people's minds. She is literally connected to the conscious internet. So you ask her any question without her studying or reading it, she will have the answer because what she does is real. So guys, watch the episode when it drops today. And with that being said, folks, I love you. I see you. I hear you. I am you. Continue to ask questions. Don't be afraid to pull back the curtain. Take a deeper look. Push forward. Always reaching beyond the frequency.